when you're ready, if you'd like to start. Are we ready,
That'd be
Elisa?
great.
Yes.
I can barely hear you guys.
All right, then I'll go. Can everybody hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Great.
This is
When
Raul.
you're ready, if you'd
I
like
can
to
barely
start.
hear you.
Are we ready, Elisa?
You can barely hear me? Do I need to speak
Yeah.
louder?
No, I
Turn
hear
the
you.
speaker all the way up.
All right, then I'll go. Yeah, Ralph, move your speaker up on whatever you're on.
Yep.
Because I'm
that's
pretty
all
loud.
When you're ready, if
I
you'd
can
like
barely hear you.
Okay.
to. Are we ready, Elisa?
You can barely hear me? Do I need to speak
Yeah.
louder? The March 20, 2020 Oregon State Lottery Commission meeting is now in session. This month's meeting will not include public comment. The next opportunity for public comment will be on April 24. It's noted for the record that commissioners are attending this meeting via telephone, and a quorum of commissioners is present for today's meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed on the internet, and a link is posted on the Oregon Lottery website. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Patel?
Present.
And a quorum of
Commissioner Telfer?
for today's meeting.
Here.
Today's meeting
Commissioner
is being
Valdivia?
live streamed on the internet,
Present.
and a link is posted on the
Commissioner
Oregon
Wilcox?
Lottery website.
Here.
Will the clerk please call
Chair
the roll?
Safoff? Commissioner Patel?
Here.
Present.
Will the lottery staff members in the room or on the phone please introduce themselves?
Commissioner Valdivia?
This is Farshad
Start in the
Aladani.
Commissioner Wilcox?
Let's start with the room and then we'll do the phone. Who's in the room?
Commissioner Patel?
Here.
Mike Wells,
Will the
Assistant
lottery
Director of
staff
Security.
members in the room or on-
Joel Ratcliffe, Oregon State Police.
Introduce themselves.
Chris Scarrow, Rules and Policy.
This is Farshad Aladani.
Bambi Larson, IT Service Desk Supervisor. Elisa Zavala, Executive Assistant. That's all in the room.
Okay. On the phone?
This is Farshad Aladani, Chief Gaming Operations Officer.
Kathy Ortega, Chief Financial Officer.
Janelle Simmons, CHRO.
Kathy Strongberg, Corporate Affairs Officer.
Is that it, you think? I believe so.
That's it.
All right. So with that, I'm going to move to Commissioner and Director of Communications. And I'd just like to start by first expressing my gratitude for the lottery and for the director to making this able for us to do this remotely. The state and the nation is in a difficult time. We're all personally going through difficult times as well as our entities. And so I'm simply asking for a little patience and grace for any glitches. Everyone's a little bit stressed at the moment, and I know that my colleagues and commissioners feel the same, and I just want to express that for a moment. With that, are there any other, Director Pack, Barry, do you have any communications? And then I'll open up for any other commissioner communications as well.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Obviously, these are difficult times for all of us. It is particularly difficult for our business having facing the loss of 70% of our revenue here for the indefinite future. We are working hard to understand the impact to our budgets and our cash and to our employees and to our retailers. We have a lot of retailers who may not survive this shutdown, and lots of questions out there around how to manage our asset in the field and how to continue to find ways to bolster the sales that are going on to meet our mission. We'll have more details for you in the next week or so, but I thought I would just pause and see if there are questions that I can answer today.
Well, you
Yes,
have answered the overall. Go ahead, I'll wait.
I guess my question is, with what you are going to be doing several weeks, a term and long, what's going to happen over the next couple of months, the decisions you're going to have to make and risks, as well as this goes on into, in terms of what California just did is a lockdown. Expectation is that states, including ours, are soon to follow, knowing that some of our are pretty much we've seen the details of the video lottery, and then it further replace revenue on. Like to see what are the reductions that are going to be put in place, similar to what the retailers and distribution outlets are going to be and have already done. And how do we maintain the assets going forward? And so how do we limit expenses and what implications? A lot of detail put into that in that report that you guys do provide us.
Okay, you were cutting out a lot there, Malene, but I think I caught the gist of it all.
Yeah.
So yes, we will. We have some immediate decisions that we're going to have to make in terms of some potential charges to our retailers, NSFs that are coming in, amusement device taxes, which will become due soon. We have to do some work there. And then we have work to do within our own budgets and revenues and expenditures. We'll get you details. We're also going to have to revisit our capital expenses that are currently have funds set aside to evaluate our cash flow and what has to continue for long-term viability, assuming we get out of this at some point, and what can be paused or delayed. There are a lot of interdependencies, so it's not a simple just stop everything decision. It's much more nuanced than that. But we will work to get you a report by the end of next week, at least the status report.
And it's all not only what are we doing in the short term, but recession that means are all over the place, and they keep increasing day by day. But looking at what economists are saying, and so the weather through the 18 to 36 months, not just this one dip we're seeing right now. And how do we have enough insurance we can sail through that?
Right.
Other commissioners, any comments? Okay, hearing none, let's move to the minutes of the previous commission meeting. The minutes of the previous commission.
Chair, Madam, I'm sorry, I had my speaker on. I do have a question for Director Pack, sorry.
All right, that's fine. Go back.
Okay. Regarding the NSFs, Barry, you mentioned, is there an uptick in that? Is that why you mentioned it at this time?
Yes, Raul, there is.
Okay.
We anticipate a significant uptick. We have some retailers self-reporting that they are going to not have the funds available, and we'll be getting probably the bulk of the report today.
Okay. And then just regarding the retailers, are a lot of them calling in? Are they, what is the mood like for them? Or do you have any, have you been able to feel anything regarding that?
Yes, they are calling in. They're all generally devastated, as you can imagine. They are laying off employees. They're uncertain if they'll be able to survive. They have a lot of questions for us that we can't always answer. I would say that by and large, though, the relationship is still strong. They are not no one's coming to us, and obviously we're not blaming us, but even the retailers who are calling in and saying, I don't have sufficient funds, they're not asking that we waive those fees. They're just asking for some grace to figure out how to pay it back, which we are definitely giving them. I'm also not requiring any video retailer who has an NSF, not requiring them to post a bond as we normally do, because they just don't have the money right now. And I'm not gonna penalize them further for just trying to keep their employees paid for one more week.
Right. Okay.
Barry, along with that, then I'm assuming that if there are any rules or there's any barrier to you and the team figuring out ways to help our partners, our retailers, anybody, that if you need rule changes, we would go to a temporary rule situation. If you don't need that and you have the discretion, I personally would say, from my point of view, you have my full support in extending whatever you can do to help.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think we need any rule changes, but we will keep an eye on that. I'll definitely keep you posted if we do need to do any temporary rule changes. Otherwise, I think I have fairly broad discretion. It's really going to come down to a decision point around what we can afford and for how long, as we provide some grace to these retailers.
Understood. I'll open again just to make sure that, are there any other comments or questions from commissioners? All right, with hearing none, let's move to the minutes. The minutes of the previous commission meeting have been circulated to the commission. If there are no changes to the minutes, is there a motion to approve?
I move that the minutes of the Oregon State Lottery Commission meeting held on February 28th, 2020 be approved as final as presented today.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Will the clerk call the roll?
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Telfer?
Aye.
Commissioner Valdivia?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilcox?
Aye.
Chair Safa?
Aye. For the record, the motion is passed. So with that, I know that Kathy, you're on the phone. Shall we start the financial review of the financial report?
Yes. Chair Safoff, Commissioners, Director Pack. For the record, my name is Kathy Ortega, Chief Financial Officer for the Oregon Lottery, and I'm just going to pause to make sure everyone can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm here today to present for you the operating statements, the financial report through the month ending February, which, just so that we are clear, it's looking back, there's no looking forward on this, so it's as of a point in time. If you would flip to the operating statement for the month, looking down this report, we were just about on budget with our revenues, and we were $12.7 million ahead of budget on net profit. I highlighted a line item there for you, and I want everybody to hold on to your hats, because we have to have a little bit of a accounting discussion here. What you're seeing on the line for actual and budget and variance for game equipment, parts and maintenance and depreciation reflect a decision that we made. If you recall, we were leasing a fair number of terminals for a field test. That field test ended and we made a purchase decision. While we were leasing those terminals, they were considered an expense. Now that we have made a decision to purchase the terminals, we are going to receive from the vendor credit for some of those lease expenses on our purchase price. That means we have to take the expense that we recognized for those terminals out of expense and apply it towards the purchase price that we are going to pay for the terminals that we will receive. And that's what you're seeing here is the backing out of the lease expense and putting it onto the balance sheet as a future amount that we will be able to use to reduce the price of the terminals. So it's a bit of an accounting thing as opposed to a budget thing or a spending thing, and it just reflects the decision that we made based on those field test results. Going to the next statement, which is...
Kathy, can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
So it's not a cash flow issue, meaning instead of payments for leases, we're now paying for capital expenditure. We are actually getting a credit against the future purchase?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Kathy, that's within our, Kathy, the move, and I recall, I just want you to confirm, is within the capital budget regardless.
Yes, yes it is.
Great, thanks. Great.
You're just seeing it come through on the actuals now. On the next statement, which is the year-to-date operating statement, we're $1.4 million ahead of budget on all revenues. Same explanation on the year-to-date basis on the game equipment, parts, and maintenance. And we are $44.4 million favorable on our net profit line. Minor timing differences on the services and supplies on the next schedule that we routinely see. And then I also have the balance sheet there as of February 29th for you to take a look at. And that completes my report for this month. And I would be happy to entertain any questions.
So questions or comments from the commission? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Kathy, under the retained earnings, the equity portion, the asset purchases committed, if in fact, and remind me which assets those are that we have committed to purchase.
Those are assets that are in our operating plans. And let me give you an example. You just recently approved the purchase of VLTs, which we signed a contract for, and the Aurora equipment that we have signed contracts for. We have to set that, as I think I told you in the past, when we sign those contracts or are about to sign contracts, we have to set that money aside because those documents, as we sign them, become legal obligations to pay. So the two largest
I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. The question I have is, have we actually signed those contracts?
We have signed the contract. That's a moving question. I mean, we have signed some of them. I don't have the breakdown for you today on which ones have actually been signed or have been negotiated in good faith. I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, and Chris, that's part of the work that we're going to need to do next week as we evaluate moving forward. You know, what have we signed? What are we obligated to? What do we need to continue to operate and maintain our revenue that we can have? And is there anything that we can put on hold?
And I have every faith that's what you're all doing.
And also break fees, right? To just, you know, a cautious walk on the contract would be.
Yeah, we have break fees in the reserved funds for some of our contracts, but yes, we'll look at that too.
Yeah, and just so I voice my concern is obviously we reduced the operating working capital with our fingers crossed that, you know, below the 100 million, and the concern is that we can't borrow money, and so I just wanted to know how much of that is committed, how much of the committed is in fact a legal obligation at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the monthly financial statements?
I move that
I
the
move.
Oregon State Lottery financial statements for month ended February 28, 2020 be approved for the record as presented today.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Will the clerk call the roll?
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Telfer,
Aye.
Commissioner Valdivia,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Aye.
Chair Safa.
Aye. For the record, the motion has passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. Chris, Ms. Garrow, we're on to the rulemaking.
Thank you. Chair Sathoff, Commissioners, Director Pack. For the record, my name is Chris Scaro, Rules and Policy Analyst for the lottery. And on your agenda today, you'll be considering permanent adoption of the scoreboard and digital play administrative rules. We've discussed these at previous meetings, so just briefly for the record, I'll remind everyone what these rules do and provide an overview of the rulemaking process. So broadly speaking, we're changing 4 divisions of rules, Division 10, 46, 91, and 92, to reflect that digital play is now an option in the lottery's game portfolio. So we adopt rules to explain that a digital player account and funding account are required. We explain how prizes are claimed, validated, and paid for games that are played digitally. We commit the lottery to take reasonable steps to protect personal information it may have in a world with more non-anonymous gameplay. And we commit to provide responsible gaming tools that are appropriate for the digital context. Additionally, these rules explain how the new game scoreboard works, which is required by Oregon law. And then lastly, we repeal a division of rules that governed a game that happened to also be called scoreboard that we no longer offer, just to avoid any confusion. So you may recall we adopted these provisions as temporary rules back in October to support the launch of Scoreboard. Since then, minor updates were made to improve the rules, and I presented a new draft to you at the January Commission meeting. Shortly thereafter, we filed a notice of proposed rulemaking to open a 5-week public written comment period and announced that we would hold a public rulemaking hearing to take comment in person. On February 7th, we distributed the notice and rules pursuant to Oregon law to the Speaker of the House, Senate President, Capitol Press, and lottery's interested parties. We held a hearing earlier this week, and we closed the written comment period. We did not receive any written comment, and no one attended the public hearing. So in your materials today, you'll see a final rulemaking report that reflects that there's no public comment for you to consider. You'll also have a summary of each rule change and full rule text showing the changes. The director has reviewed these rules and recommends adoption of these rules as they are reflected in your materials today, and they would take effect upon expiration of the temporary rules. So you have a motion in your materials, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Uh-oh. Did we lose everybody?
Marty, you still there?
Oh, I apologize. I'm on mute, and I forgot to take it off. I think that's what I meant earlier when I said, let's have patience and grace, huh? So let me start again. Chris, thank you. We have looked at these rules. You guys have used your process and shared them with us. But I would like to, at this time, open it one more time if any commissioners have any questions or comments on them. Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the proposed rulemaking?
I move that the rules in OLR 177 and 4992 be adopted and then repealed as presented in the all to be effective 29 2020 for temporary.
I'm going to take that as a move. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Second.
Will the clerk call the roll?
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Telfer?
Aye.
Commissioner Valdivia?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilcox?
Aye.
Chair Southhoff?
Aye. For the record, the motion has passed. That actually is the bulk of the agenda. I do want to ask if there's any other business that the commissioners would like to address, or the director or staff at this time.
Well, I have a question, and I don't necessarily expect a total answer, but, you know, obviously moving forward under the current situation of, you know, the shutdowns of business, et cetera, and the fact that lottery cannot borrow money, I'm just wondering what the prognosis is that's being considered.
The prognosis. The challenge we have is not knowing how long this restrictions on bars and restaurants will remain in place. There are a lot of assumptions that we can and will have to make as we do this analysis in terms of short-term financial position and cash, longer-term revenue loss and cash, on recovery, how many retailers survive and come back. There's just a whole lot more questions than we have had time to do the analysis. I think that what we will look at short term through the end of the fiscal year, we're probably going to be in an okay position. I think it's the longer term question where we're going to have to do some modeling about, you know, best, medium, and worst case scenarios.
And Director Pack, this is Marty again. The lottery is a necessary component of the state's operations due to the bonding of lottery dollars. So I'm assuming that in this process, you're working really closely with the governor's office. There's no way the state, we can't resolve issues with our vendors and our partners, but there's no way the state's going to have to find a way to help us remain viable, even in the long run. They just will need us. So I appreciate that you guys are looking at both the short term and the long term. And I did want to remind, I think the money we have as contingency, I'm trying to recall how long we thought that would enable us. But maybe at some point in the future, you can remind us, even the short term.
That will be in my report next week.
Great. Thank you, Barry. Any other comments or from the commissioners or questions? Hearing none, this concludes today's meeting of the Oregon State Lottery Commission. The next meeting is scheduled on April 24 in Salem. Thank you. Well, I should make a caveat on that. I assume it will be in Salem until we hear more on this event. Thank you for all attending today's meeting, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks.